Good evening, everyone, and we are so excited to be back for our September series of college journey conversations right here at Capstone Educational Consultants. We took a short breather since our last gauntlet of 12 episodes. If you haven't had a chance to see any of those that we did earlier in the summer, I encourage each of you to go back to our website and you'll find a little button at the top of the page, of the homepage, and you'll see College Journey Conversations there. And you can view any number of 12 that we've already done. And we'd love to have you just sit back and enjoy the conversations that we've had. We've had some pretty exciting and interesting ones. Of course, Stephanie joined us on one of those 12, and she is now here accompanying us. And we're doing these together in the month of September for our entire September series. Stephanie, how are things in Huntsville, Alabama?
I'm sorry, say that again. I couldn't hear you.
Oh man, how are things in Huntsville, Alabama?
They're good. They're hot, but they're good. Everything's good. Schools are up and running for the most part.
Yeah, we've kind of encountered some hiccups, not just in your neck of the woods or my neck of the woods, as they say down here in the South, but all over the country, and we're really sad. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all the students that are dealing with quite a bit of anxiety and frustration as they're entering their juniors and senior years, and for that matter, any grade level that's experiencing the changes that they are is pretty devastating. But they're doing a good job. They're resilient. And I think they're gonna be better for it even in the midst of it. So we give them all of our thoughts and prayers in that journey that they have to help. You know, we're gonna have a little conversation tonight on hopefully giving some insight on what it looks like to do the Common Application in crazy times. That's our subject matter tonight, and I couldn't think of a crazier time than we're in right now, right? So definitely, as we are approaching some pretty extraordinary moments, you know, the Common App has always been kind of an interesting part of the admissions process for many of the colleges and for many students. But you know, these are some crazy times. Would you agree, Steph?
Oh, absolutely. But so these kids will make the best of it.
How crazy have they gotten there in Huntsville?
Well, kids are getting real creative on what they do, and it's been pretty fun to watch, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Huntsville's a pretty exciting town, and it's a little hidden gem of the South, I think. And I think one of the great places to go to visit some of our space history, which is kind of exciting. It's a great place to visit that. But you know, we've had some pretty crazy times across the country this year. 2020 has shaped up to be some of the most extraordinary things in the world that have happened. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of them because some of them just make me laugh. I don't know about you, Steph, but some of them are kind of funny. But I mean, they're real, but they're kind of funny. Like, take, for instance, murder hornets. I mean, come on, murder hornets. That is like, could there be any kind of introduction of an animal that would be like the most devastating in the world? I mean, and to call them a murder hornet.
I know. Who came up with that name?
I have no idea, but that definitely topped the charts at the beginning of our year, only to be followed by an extraordinary announcement by the Pentagon as they released photos of UFO sightings. And this one I kind of wish you could see that photo because people, it's real. But no, I'm just kidding. But it's just
we're not alone.
Right. It's
we're not alone.
Then, of course, in April of 2020, astrologers lost a star. I know that's like the most bizarre thing in the world, but it cracked me up when I saw this story. A star actually went missing And I'm not sure how that happens.
I have no idea.
Who's responsible for that? But someone is going to absolutely get in big, big trouble for missing that star. But that's just a few of the crazy things
I would.
in 2020. But more, it got real personal for many of our students, unfortunately. 2020 didn't go without our schools being closed. In the middle of their second semester of their year, or in March and April and May, and unfortunately, it resulted in many of them not even being able to celebrate graduation as we have come to know it. Was that the case there in Huntsville?
Oh, it absolutely was. They finally, they would pick several dates, and finally they did some outdoors graduations and stages, but it wasn't near what it's always been. But the kids did get to walk across, for the most part, and get their diplomas. So that was good that they knew that was so important to the kids. That's a huge accomplishment to spend 12 years working hard and then.
It is. And, congratulations, class of 2020. That's all. Right. You guys deserve a gold medal all to yourself. But of course, because the schools closed because of even what we're experiencing today in September, and that was COVID-19, the biggest story of the year. Of course, not unmatching any of the other crazy things that have happened in this year. And of course, the most recent and current that we're experiencing effect of all that is the fact that all these tests have been canceled. ACT and SAT have been canceled from one site to the next. And it doesn't seem like it is ever going to end, but it will. It will. Things are going to get better, and the students are going to have an opportunity to take those tests. But in these crazy times that we are in, the Common App seems to be something that still has to take place, right? And but how do we communicate our story inside this particular application? Now, interestingly enough, there are students, believe it or not, that have no idea what the Common Application is. And maybe some parents out there that have no idea what the Common Application is. And we're going to start off by kind of learning a little bit more about what the Common App is for students and how it can really benefit the students, but also go about what it means to add colleges to it. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff as it relates to the Common App in their process. So Stefanie, can you tell parents just a little bit about kind of in general, what is the Common App? Where can they find it? Where would they go to learn a little bit more about it? What does it mean to them? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the Common App is a great way to do many things one time. So you're able to apply to a lot of colleges that kind of go through one process instead of individually going to each one of the colleges and filling out a separate application. So if you go to commonapp.org and bring that up, and then your student will need to create an account. And once they've done that, then they're going to have access to all the information that the Common App has. They can do research on colleges. They can see what the prompts are, and to be able to choose and really think through the different prompts instead of making a real quick decision of which one really can best talk about their background and things that are meaningful to them. So that would be your first step, is just go into commonapp.org and make an account. And they're going to show you steps to go through, and it's going to be relatively self-explanatory, but it's going to be a whole lot of time saving than going to each individual colleges. And most of the colleges do use Common App now.
But not all of them. And I think
not all of
them. And it's important to identify, which do and which don't. And so I know one way that you can find out whether or not a college uses Common App, if you're just kind of on the site and you haven't set up an account yet, there's a place to find a college or look for a college. And if you put the college's name in that search engine or search area, it'll pull up whether or not they're on there or not. And so you can kind of learn in that way whether or not they're listed on the Common App. Now, we're going to go into a lot more detail with those families who have Naviance at their high school. So if you are, for some reason, sitting at your computer and thinking, hey, now might be a great time to make an account on Common App while Mark and Stephanie are talking about it, I'm going to ask you to pause right now, because there's going to be some details that are going to be important before you do make that account. So this is great information, I think, for any high school junior who's getting ready to consider moving in on that college journey. May want to set up an account early, but recognize if they do set up an account early as a junior, none of the colleges on the list will apply to them because their applications are for the seniors who are applying for their entering year, or graduation year. So that's important, but all of their data that they enter for their personal information as they populate that section of the Common App will be retained when they switch over and transfer all their data over once they become a senior. So there is some benefits to maybe getting an account started early and getting a little bit of a head start on that. Yeah, but once you get into the Common App, once you actually make an account, once you get inside, you're going to have the opportunity to actually add a college to your Common App list. And so if there are several colleges that you're considering who are also on the Common App, you'll be able to actually list them inside the Common App. So that's a great way to organize it and to keep it rather simple. Now we're going to be talking a little bit about how we can communicate these crazy times inside the Common App. Like any application, the Common App is a tool to tell your story, okay? And I think that's important for families to recognize that the student themselves will be populating all of the information in the Common App. But more importantly, all of that information will tell their story. Now there's many different elements, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. But first, we're going to tackle a little bit of a monster when it comes to working with Naviance and Common App. When those two begin to kind of enter the world together, it's a little complicated, but not impossible. But it's important to get a few things straight and understand a few things. So we're going to talk about matching your Common App with your Naviance account. And if you don't know what Naviance is, then this probably won't apply to you. But if you know what Naviance is, then you know immediately that you're going to need to know a little bit more information here. And your high school would likely have already informed you of the fact that you have a Naviance account. You should know that. So that's not new information to you. Naviance and Common App, they do shake hands. They do work together, but only if you are entering the data correctly for them to do so. So it's important that that takes place. First things first, when you're making your Common App and you're actually starting your Common, you're making your account, make sure you're using the same email as you've used for your Naviance account. We want things to talk the same language and recognize one another. So make sure, it's really important that you're using the same information. Also, make sure that the name you're using is the same name and your legal name that's being used over in Naviance, as well as address, and other pertinent information. Those things are going to need to talk to one another and recognize one another in that way. Well, over in Naviance, similarly to Common App, you're going to have an opportunity to select schools in Naviance. That's a great tool. Naviance is a great tool to be able to kind of research some of those schools, make a good list of your schools, and that's all well and good. But you're also going to have an opportunity in Naviance to identify how it is you're going to apply to that school. Are you going to apply early decision, early action? We've come across early action 2, and in some cases early action 3. How are you going to apply regular decision? And you'll need to make that clear in Naviance before you're adding that school in Common App. Because once they start talking that information, for virtue of the dates of that application, are going to apply. When it comes to recommenders, it's important to understand the difference between these two as well. So if you're using Naviance, there's a couple of general rule of thumb that you need to abide by when it comes to the referrals or the recommendations. In Naviance, you're going to make requests to your recommenders who are teachers and counselors. Because in Naviance, your school's teachers and your school's counselor will likely use Naviance to receive those invitations and to complete those invitations. Anyone other than your teacher or your counselor will be able to use the Common App and make recommendation requests through the Common App for anything and anyone other than your counselor or your teachers in that regards. In order to start making recommendations in your Common App, you're going to have to sign the FERPA authorization form first. I know that sounds crazy, and worse yet, finding it is like a needle in a haystack. But here's how you do it. Just find one college, search for one college and add it to your list. And once you've added one college, you'll be able to find there in a list of requirements your FERPA release authorization. Once you do that, it will open up the opportunity for you to make requests or invitations to your recommenders. And that's a very important key. It is also something you have to do for every college. So make sure that you don't just do it once for the first one, but for every college that you've actually put on your list. And those recommenders may be different. So some of them may request or require 2, maybe 3, maybe only 1. But you get to choose the who that invitation gets sent to. So be careful in that. Remember that Naviance is where you'll request your transcript to be sent to a college, and the Common App is where you actually apply to the college. So those are some differences in match between Naviance and Common App and how they match and how they work together. They do shake hands. Does that sound complicated, Stephanie?
A little bit, but it makes sense. Well, I mean, I'm just going to be, when you're hearing this for the first time, it's like, oh my goodness. But if you think about that, Naviance has to do with school stuff, and personal stuff comes through the Common App. You can kind of separate it a little bit. So when you were saying that Naviance, if you're going to have a teacher recommendation or counselor, that's with school. If you're going to have your transcript, that's with school, which is Naviance. So kind of think of it that way. And then the personal recommendations that you have, those can go through the Common App, and you have a little more control over that. So if you kind of think Naviance school stuff, then that'll kind of maybe separate in your brain.
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of delineate some of those things and help students think through that process a little better. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Thank you for kind of doing that. That's awesome. So now we're going to spend time solely in the Common App, okay? So for all of you who, even though you have Naviance, the rest of these, the subjects that we're going to discuss tonight, these next few are strictly in the Common App. And we want to talk a little bit about, we got crazy times, right? So we want to make things as crazy less as possible. I think I just made up a word. Do you think I did? I think
Maybe.
crazy list. Yeah, I think I made it up, but it's a good word and I like it. I'm going to stick to it. How's that? But let's talk about our activities list. Like when we get into the Common App, you're going to have an opportunity to actually create an activities list, and hopefully there's some extracurricular activities you've had an opportunity to participate in over the course of your 9th, 10th, and 11th grade year. And this is a time to really allow them to shine, right? Remember, and this is important, that the Common App is the tool to tell your story. And your story is going to get read by admissions. But you have many different ways to kind of illuminate your story. And this activities list is definitely one of those ways. So you get to be creative with this. And in some ways, here's a crazy point, right? Since we're in crazy times, right? So here's a crazy point. You don't even have to use complete sentences in the activities list. How crazy. You don't even need a subject for each of your lists of activities. You don't even need to use like the right verbs. It's really bizarre. You can use like abbreviations. Like everywhere else, when in all of your writing, when you have to use, when you really want to use an abbreviation, people go, nope, that's wrong. Don't use the abbreviation. You got to spell that out. Well, not here. You get to actually use the abbreviations. Like for instance, what's an example of an abbreviation you can use? Well, let's say that you ran 5 miles or that 5K, right? You can like use the K. Or if you lifted 200 pounds, you don't have to spell out the word pounds. You can just LBS it. LBS it. That's the way to go. So you can use these abbreviations, but why would you? And why would that be to your advantage? Any ideas, Steph?
Because you're limited on how many words you can use.
Yeah, we're limited as to how many words we can use in our activities list. And do you know how many that is?
Let's see. 150?
150 is the number we have for the characters you can use in an activities listing. That's less than a tweet. That's like really condensing the information. So what kind of verbs would you use that could maybe start off an activity that you participated in?
You use organized, participated, created, any of those kind of, and I would use a past tense because these have happened in the past. So, and you don't, if you just start with that, then you don't use your subject, which takes up a word. So you just, I thought the tweet thought was really good because we need to think about this as a short thing, not everything else we do, like you just said, is supposed to be well said and flow and all, but that's not here. That's not what you want. You want to get out as much information as what you've done, but in a very compact word. So think tweet land.
Right. And avoid wordiness, because for every word, you're taking up some valuable real estate. So you want to communicate whatever that might be in a very short time frame. And so, it's very easy to do that by starting each sentence off with a past tense verb, like you said. So find a list of those past tense verbs that are good action verbs. And these are verbs that you'd actually use in a resume. So, if you have a resume coach, or if there's somebody around you that's familiar with creating a resume, you could Google resume, verbs that are great descriptors or something like that, that would help kind of get your brain thinking about great ways to describe things you've done. And this helps, just kind of bring attention to the activities list in ways that that otherwise people are like having to read these long sentences and the essays, 650 words, but this is short, as my mom used to say, short and sweet. So we want to make it short and sweet. Yeah. So if one of those things you did is you collected $2,000 for a food drive. Sounds simple, right? And sounds awesome. That's a great thing to kind of share on an activities list. But you would want to shorten the $2,000, right? $2,000 is TWO, THOUSAND, DOLLARS. That's a lot of real estate when it comes to characters. Condense that down to $2K, and you're done. You just went from that huge set of words to 3 characters. You've saved a lot of real estate, and now you can dedicate that real estate to some very good information about you to help tell your story. It's good stuff. Simplify your activities. All right. Crazy time calls for crazy measures. That's the thing, right? All right. So many of us have had the opportunity to talk about personal statement essays. This is probably the largest component of the application process, whether you're inside the Common App or outside the Common App. Personal statement essays are 650 words of prime real estate for you to share your story. Here's what's cool about this. Even as a junior in high school, moms, dads, this is a tip that you could use to get a head start. That first draft, that storyline, that first draft can always be started early. So feel free to go ahead and get those prompts and get that personal statement started. Even as a junior, you can get it. Now, there may be some experiences that take place between your junior year and your senior year. We understand that. That may have a valuable impact to what that essay might look like. It's editable. We can add to it later, but it's certainly good to get those juices running. But when you're doing your personal statement essay in the Common App, Stefanie, can you think of one bit of advice that would be good for students not to do when it comes to their Common App essay inside the Common App? Can you think? Can you tell? I have not fed Stefanie answers. So, and I have not given Stefanie questions.
That was not the question I thought you were going to ask me.
Just for those folk out there that think that I've staged this entire thing, Stephanie, I'm running on the fly on this one. So can you think of one thing? Like, what's a good idea for students not to do who are writing their Common App essay, not to do in the Common App? Ooh, this is a tricky question. It's also kind of confusing.
Sure, exactly what you're asking me. The most important thing is to be genuine and truthful and from your heart.
That is a true statement.
So you're not going to want to embellish things that you can't back up. You don't want to sound fake, or I think genuine is what you really want, because particularly in what everybody's gone through over the last 6 months. Whether you lost part of your junior year or, your sophomore year, I think plenty to be genuine about. And I think colleges are looking for that because they know everybody's struggled through that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're hinting at?
Those are very good points. And I'm going to like say that your answer is absolutely right, even though my question wasn't going in that direction. But no, this
Sorry
is
about that.
beautiful. Your answer is absolutely right. However, one of the most important things to do with your Common App when you're creating it is not to write it in your Common App. Instead, you need to create it outside of the Common App. So in a Google Doc or a Word document, you need to create it outside of that window so that you can polish it, edit it, make it better, improve upon it. And then once you're done and it is settled, you can then transfer it in by cut and paste carefully into your Common App, knowing full well that it's exactly like you want it. Okay, so that's the biggest tip. If you and this is for the beginners, like this is information that would be good for someone who has never been introduced to the Common App, doesn't understand the Common App, or hasn't been exposed to aspects of the Common App. And so just to know this small tip seems like something that, you know, is silly to know, but it sure does save a lot of time and potential error. And we want to avoid the potential error at all costs, especially when it comes to this personal statement essay.
When you start cutting and pasting, that can get very disjointed and you can send in something that you did not mean to.
That is correct.
So, to just paste everything in after you've worked on it is worth gold.
That is correct. Gold. All right. Our next crazy moment for the Common App in crazy times is let's choose our recommenders carefully. Carefully. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, a couple of things actually. Not necessarily albeit we can assume carefully as in who to select carefully. but because you need to think through that. In fact, let's talk a little bit about that. The who. Choose your recommenders carefully. Who would be a good person to choose for a recommender? Who?
To get a recommendation? From whom to get a recommendation?
It wasn't coming out right.
I would definitely say that you want somebody from your school who, a teacher or a coach, someone that knows you well, not just somebody that knows you academically. So although to get the head of school or the principal might sound really great, but if they don't really know you, then their title is not going to be everything. You really want the person to write a recommendation from their heart about experiences they have with you. And if you give them your resume, that can fill in some of the gaps that maybe they don't know what you do outside of school. So you definitely need to think along the lines of academics, but then you also want to look outside of that and look for people that have mentored you, or if you dance, or if you know, any kind of sport that's outside of school, you can go to those coaches who know you well. So it's really about who knows you well and who wants to see you succeed and will actually take the to write a good recommendation.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, take a look at, consider the fact that you are wanting to be in a particular academic program. So if you're wanting engineering or education, or take a look at the academic program that you're going to want to be in, and then consider the subjects that are significant in those academic areas, and reflect back on your high school days and find a teacher that you were able to be a student under in those similar academic areas to provide that academic reference. That's a very good idea. Choose them wisely. Choose your teachers wisely, and also choose those outside of the school wisely, right? Many like to choose their pastors or their coaches, as you mentioned, even in club sports, their coaches, or maybe a neighbor or a family friend who has known the family, or maybe even someone that used to change your diapers, right? So
Or even if you work, your boss.
yeah, let's not neglect the fact that maybe your boss would be a good idea. Especially if you've gotten some good evaluations, right?
Yeah.
So choose them wisely. But more importantly, we want, as we mentioned back in the section on Naviance, choose your recommenders carefully, because if you're in Naviance, again, as a reflection, I hate to repeat myself here, but make sure that you're recommending your teacher and your counselor through Naviance, and the rest of your recommenders through Common App. That's very, very important. Again, if you're not in Naviance at all and you're just in the Common App, then hit them all right through Common App, and that's a good idea to do that. Again, in order to get to them, you've got to get that FERPA authorization met first, and then you've got to do that for every college that you've entered into the list. So it's a process, slightly tedious, but the rewards are great. So choose your recommenders carefully. Crazy times call for crazy measures. All right. And then there's a section in the Common App that is just as vague as today is long. And it's called additional information. What kind of additional information would one want to put or should put in there? Steph, any ideas?
Well, really can be anything that has not been covered otherwise in the Common App that you feel is important to describe who you are. Colleges are wanting to know, what you're going to bring to their campuses. And this is a time for you to shine in that, a lot of times the questions they ask, if you don't fit into the cookie cutter mold that everybody else does, then that gives you the time to say, hey, I've done these things and this is how it, has impacted me. And that's your time to shine on that. It's not required,
Right.
but it's a time to do that. Whereas sometimes I think students get done filling everything out and feel like, ooh, I didn't really get to tell them about X,
Right.
which is really important to me.
Right.
So that's where you do this.
Yeah.
So take advantage of it.
And it should not be reserved for the most important information about you.
Yeah.
Like, don't save this real estate for the most important thing. That should have gone somewhere else, maybe your essay or in your activities list. This is additional info. This is like extra things, like you had a discrepancy in your transcript that needs an explanation, right? This would be the place where you might want to provide a little bit more detail as to why there's a discrepancy in your school record. That makes sense, right? Something that might need some explanation. And those discrepancies can be caused by any number of things. A natural disaster, a death in the family, a failure to achieve the best you could possibly do, a car accident, you've gotten out of school for a horrible illness and it's affected your grades and your performance. There's good reasons that these things take place and they just need a little bit of explanation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a place to consider or to think that, oh, I don't want to put anything in the additional information. They'll think I'm trying to, tell a story or try to excuse myself from doing poorly in school. No, that's not really the purpose of this additional information section. It's meant to provide, like it said, further information. Give us some insight, shine a light on the circumstance so we can see it a little bit more clearly. So we don't make assumptions, right? And we understand the situation completely. It's not meant for a pity party moment. It's meant for a true description of what took place. The admissions offices need to know, right? Ask yourself, is there anything else that's not reflected in my Common App that admissions could find, it could prove to be helpful for admissions to know? And that's the place that you would put this. Now, you know, we're in the middle of crazy times, and COVID is clearly one of them. School has gotten canceled more than we cared to ever have admitted. It's funny, we always wished it had been canceled, and now we're like, please, can we just go back?
Yeah, friends. Yeah.
And so, you know, careful what you wish for, right? No, but we're in some crazy times where school's been canceled, tests have been canceled. Everything we thought would be there next has not been there next. So how is it that we maybe communicate some of those moments and those experiences into either the additional information section or maybe another area? I know that the Common App also provides opportunity to write an essay on your COVID experience. You know, do you submit that? Do you write about that? And, you know, our encouragement to students is that there's not a necessary reason to write about your COVID experience necessarily. It's certainly not an experience that you're the only one experiencing. Now, that doesn't minimize your experience, but everybody's had one. But has yours been significant? Like, has it been a really amazing experience? In other words, has something mind-blowing happened to you? Have you grown immensely? What kind of contribution have you been able to make as a result of the experience? What impact have you made on the world around you, maybe even your little world, as a result of your COVID experience? Then those moments may warrant a slight essay to help explain a very unique experience, to help share and shed a little bit more light on your story. But it's very important to do that carefully, and share that information carefully and consider it carefully. But reserve that additional information space for very unique circumstances that need further explanation. Wow, we're in crazy times. Definitely calls for crazy measures, right? And we've got to do things maybe a little differently. The Common App is still there, and we're still able to apply to colleges. And while it seems like the world may be crushing in and around us, it's going to be okay, and it's all going to be just fine. Students are still thriving, and students are making a difference in the world around them and contributing to our society in very exciting ways. And new discoveries are still being made, and new minds are entering the academic field as we speak. And I'm excited to see what this generation is about to experience, and what they're actually going to contribute to the greater good of our society. And they are very much capable of doing that. Agreed?
Agreed. I always think students rise to the occasion and succeed when obstacles are thrown at them. They do it, and they're doing it now. And I'm very impressed that students just take it in stride there's nothing anyone can do about it. It is what it is. And I hate that phrase, but that's kind of where we are at this point. So you make the best of it. And the colleges are aware that, you know, SAT, ACT keeps canceling. I mean, they're going to make allowances for that. They're going to figure it out. We may not know exactly how they're going to figure those things out, but don't worry about the things you can't control. You
That's right.
just worry about and think about and do your best on the things that you can control. And the rest will work out. It will.
That's a good word, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us tonight. And as we move through September on our September series, we'll see you every Wednesday night this month. And I'm pretty excited to spend that time with you. And I hope our guests will enjoy the fact that they can come back next Wednesday and get a brand new topic and can see about that and learn a little bit more about the college journey. On our September series of college journey conversations right here at Capstone Educational Consultants, go visit us at www.capstoneed.com and learn a little bit more about what Capstone Educational Consultants is all about, both here in Peachtree City, Georgia, and where Stefanie is in Huntsville, Alabama, and service to the entire country. We love that you joined us tonight, and we will love to see you next week. Same time, 7 o'clock, right here. Thank you. We'll see you guys. Bye, Steph.
Bye.